Before brownies became one of the world's favorite chocolate desserts, they started as a simple mistake in the kitchen. Soft, rich, and filled with chocolate goodness, brownies have captured the hearts of people of all ages. But how did this delicious treat begin? Let's discover the sweet story behind the famous brownie, from its humble beginnings to becoming a timeless dessert loved around the world. The original Palmer House brownie. The original Palmer House brownie was invented in 1893 for the World's Columbian Exposition. Bertha Palmer, best known as the Queen of Chicago Society. Born Bertha Honoré in Kentucky and raised in Chicago, she married millionaire real estate and hotel mogul Potter Palmer in 1870. Together, they built the opulent Palmer House. During the fair, she requested the Palmer House kitchen with creating a dense, chocolate cake-like dessert for women to carry in boxed lunches. The historic dessert is distinct from modern brownies because it relies on a specific set of traditional ingredients and techniques. The rich base was made with high-quality chocolate, butter, sugar, flour, and whole eggs. The recipe uses no baking powder or baking soda, creating a fudgy, cake-like consistency. After baking, the hot brownies are immediately coated in an apricot glaze. Crushed walnuts are pressed into the sticky apricot glaze while it sets. You can still eat the exact same dessert today. The Palmer House Hilton in Chicago continues to bake the brownie using Bertha Palmer's original 1893 recipe. Fanny Farmer and the first printed brownie recipe. At nearly the same time, another path quietly unfolded in New England kitchens. Home cooks turned the pages of the 1896 Boston Cooking School cookbook by Fanny Farmer, featured the very first printed recipe titled Brownies, and it completely lacked chocolate. Instead, the recipe relied heavily on molasses for its dark color and rich. The exact 1896 recipe ingredients consisted of 1/3 cup butter, 1/3 cup powdered sugar, 1/3 cup Puerto Rico molasses, 1 egg, well beaten, 7/8 cup bread flour, 1 cup pecan meats, cut in pieces. The ingredients were mixed together, spooned into small, shallow fancy cake tins, garnished with a pecan half, and baked. The resulting treat tasted more like a modern, chewy molasses gingerbread or a deep, dark blondie than a chocolate dessert. Recognizing this massive trend, Fanny Farmer officially updated her own cookbook in the 1906 edition, adding a recipe for chocolate brownies that permanently shifted the definition of the dessert. First chocolate recipe. The first true chocolate brownie recipe appeared in the Service Club of Chicago cookbook in 1904. This points to a crucial distinction in culinary history. While the Palmer House Hotel created a chocolate and apricot bar dessert in 1893, the 1904 Service Club cookbook in Chicago published what food historians consider the first known printed, home-cooked recipe for a modern chocolate brownie. Interestingly, the recipe printed in Chicago was actually titled Bangor Brownies, which directly honors the persistent culinary legend that the home-style chocolate brownie originated in Bangor, Maine. Before this discovery, historians credited Fanny Farmer's 1906 edition. The 1904 Chicago recipe effectively bridged the gap between luxury hotel confections and everyday home baking. This 1904 recipe contained all the core elements of a modern, classic brownie: creamed butter and sugar, eggs, melted baker's chocolate, flour, chopped walnuts. Unlike the 1896 molasses version, which was baked in individual molds, this 1904 recipe instructed the baker to spread the batter into a square pan, bake it until gooey, and slice it into bars. A tale of two 1904 recipes. Food historians have unearthed a second community cookbook from the exact same year. Together, these two texts mark the definitive introduction of chocolate to the printed brownie timeline. The Service Club Cookbook, Chicago, Illinois, featured the chocolate Bangor Brownies recipe. Home Cookery, Laconia, New Hampshire, also published a localized recipe for chocolate brownies in 1904. Because these two regional cookbooks appeared at the exact same time on opposite sides of the country, historians infer that home cooks had already been sharing the chocolate version by hand for a few years before it finally made its way into print. The Bangor Brownie. Another popular theory suggests a Maine housewife forgot to add baking powder to her chocolate cake, causing it to stay flat and dense. This Bangor Brownie was famously printed in the Boston Globe in 1905. The story of the Maine housewife who forgot her baking powder is the most famous and enduring myth in American dessert history. Known as the legend of the Bangor Brownie, this tale of culinary serendipity has been printed in classic texts like Betty Crocker's Baking Classics and John Mariani's The Encyclopedia of American Food and Drink. The accidental recipe, according to folklore, a busy housewife in Bangor, Maine, was trying to bake a standard chocolate cake for her family or dinner guests. Distracted while mixing her ingredients, she accidentally omitted the baking powder, or baking soda, from the batter. When she pulled the pan out of the oven, she discovered a flat, dense, collapsed mess instead of a fluffy cake. Being a frugal, practical New England cook, she refused to throw away the expensive chocolate and sugar. She took a knife, cut the sunken cake into square blocks, and served them anyway. Her guests loved the chewy, rich texture, and the accidental dessert instantly became a local sensation. The real identity of the housewife. While the story is usually told about an anonymous baker, food historians have traced the myth back to a real person named Mildred Brown Schrumpf. Schrumpf was a revered food educator, University of Maine home economics instructor, and longtime food columnist for the Bangor Daily News. Her lifelong nickname just happened to be Brownie. Brownie Schrumpf passionately championed the Bangor housewife story for decades, engaging in lighthearted public feuds with national culinary encyclopedias to ensure Maine got historical credit for the dessert. Debunking the myth. As charming as the story is, food historians have largely proven it is an urban legend rather than historical fact. The myth usually relies on a community cookbook published in Bangor in 1912. As you noted, the Service Club of Chicago had already printed a recipe for chocolate Bangor Brownies back in 1904. The physics of baking. If you simply remove baking powder from a standard, airy cake recipe, it doesn't automatically turn into a perfect, fudgy brownie. True brownies have an entirely different ratio of fat, butter, and sugar to flour than standard cakes, which is what creates their distinct texture. Instead of a mistake, the brownie was a deliberate evolution of the bar cookie, invented by chefs who knew exactly what they were doing. Boxed mixes. The 1950s and 1960s saw the commercial boom of boxed mixes, making it easier than ever for home bakers to produce consistent, chewy, chocolate squares. How it got its name. The exact origin of the name remains controversial, but historians generally point to two theories. The color, because the dessert is literally baked brown. Brownies, folklore, named after the mischievous, good-natured fairies and sprites in Scottish folklore, which were popularized by illustrator Palmer Cox's comic The Brownies in the late 1880s. And so, from elegant hotel kitchens to cozy family homes, the brownie became more than just a dessert. It became a piece of history baked with creativity, comfort, and tradition. Every rich and chocolatey bite carries a story from the past, reminding us that even the simplest treats can leave a lasting mark across generations. Loved today's story? Show some love by hitting that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more. See you on the next one.